Yo, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Smooth Plays podcast. I'm Austin, aka Austin Plays, and unfortunately, you may notice that I am not being joined by my guy Dean. Unfortunately, some stuff came up, and he's not going to be able to record this Super Bowl episode, but I'm going to hold it down and make sure that we get this out for y'all. Um, Couple things that we're gonna be going over is we had the NFL honors earlier this week, so I'll be recapping some of our NFL honors, kind of acknowledging who had some pretty incredible seasons. Quite frankly, I mean there was a lot of individual performances this year that deserve recognition. And some of those people may have gotten it, and others, maybe feel like they got snubbed on some awards. So I'll go over my thoughts just on each of the awards and then wrap it up with, the Super Bowl. I mean, Chiefs and Eagles, love it or hate it, I think that it's going to be a great game, but I'll talk more about that when I get there. But I'm gonna go ahead and kick it off with the NFL honors. So starting I guess you could call it the bottom, but I guess the probably the awards that people don't realize are awards until they watch the NFL honors. But first off, we got the assistant coach of the year, and assistant coach of the year went out to Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, and I think that this is 100% well deserved because if you paid any attention to the NFL this season, and you would have seen that the Detroit Lions offense this year was historical. Hands down the best offense in the NFL. It got to a point where nobody could stop them from putting 30 points up on the board or more. And so I think that Ben Johnson winning this award is, deserved. And I don't really think that it was really a debate as to who else was in the running for this award. And Ben Johnson, ultimately, we'll talk about this come the offseason, but Ben Johnson got rewarded with not only the award, but now moving on onto bigger and better things in Chicago. He's going to be head coach of the Chicago Bears this next coming season. So best of luck to Ben Johnson. He's got some work to do because the Bears, look, we'll talk about it in free agency, but congrats to Ben Johnson. Moving on, we got our offensive player of the year. We have Jaden Daniels ended up winning the award, and I think that this is rightfully so. I think that he was by far the most impactful player for his franchise, and on top of that, led his team to two playoff wins as a rookie, all the way to the all the way into the NFC Championship game, and just the season he had in the regular season, he was just electric. He definitely raised the play of not just the offense but the defense, in my opinion. And me and Dean, we've been saying that all year. I think that the entire locker room just kind of bought into what Jane Daniels was doing for that franchise and just made the entire team better. So I think it is a well-deserved award. Guys like Bo Nix. Bo Nix was a guy that had an incredible season, and I think that I've been high on Bo Nix all year since day one. And the Denver Broncos, I think that he's another guy that definitely, if Jaden Daniels wasn't in this spot, had a good chance to win the award. He had a great year. And other guys to be noted are guys like Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. I mean, two more LSU wide receivers in the NFL just going out and doing great things. Are we even surprised at this point? I don't even think there's a debate anymore as to who wide receiver you belongs to. LSU takes it home, and it's not even close in my opinion. Call it bias, I don't care. I think that the numbers speak for themselves. And then also, LSU just really got recognized as a whole. The rookies this year: Jane Daniels, BTJ, Malik Neighbors. I mean, that's how that team didn't win. Even get into the playoffs is beyond me. I don't know. That's a story for another day. I'm not even gonna get into LSU issues right now. But big congrats to Jane Daniels, and then other rookies that I mentioned on the offensive side of the ball had really good years. So I think that they're still look. The NFL is not going anywhere. The future is going to be bright no matter what. I mean, and as long as you got guys like um, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and then Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, like as long as you have guys that are electric and can really ignite a franchise and excite a nation just because how they play, I mean, you got nothing to worry about if you're the NFL. But that wraps up the offensive rookie of the year. We're kind of jumping around. We got the defensive player of the year who got won by Pat Surtain. And I know my boy Dean is sick to his stomach because as a Steelers fan, I know he's sitting there thinking that it's just another year that TJ Watt got snubbed. And normally, I'd agree with him, but I mean, the numbers don't lie. If you look at what Pat Surtain did for this Denver defense, I mean, he led one of the best, if not the best, pass defense in the NFL. I mean, he was a shutdown corner. Anybody that was on his side of the ball, you know, they weren't getting the ball thrown to him 9 times out of 10. And who like that's a game changing player and the impact that he had for his team as a whole, I mean, I think that this is a well-deserved award. You know, it typically you see this award go to like edge rushers, or guys that are just, getting 15 tackles a game. But usually people recognize the sacks, but I like that the NFL decided to give this to Pat Surtain and recognizing the impact he made for a lot of stuff that honestly doesn't really show up on the stat sheet. So I think that this is a good sign for the NFL to recognize that, it's not just numbers and analytics that are gonna point to how impactful a player can be. Because I do think that Pat Surtain is the prime reason why Denver's defense is as good as it is this year. Um, but yeah, TJ Watt had a great year. So kudos to him, and I'm sure he'll be in this conversation for years to come still. TJ Watt, as long as he stays healthy, he's not going anywhere. And speaking of staying healthy, I mean, I gotta acknowledge that, my guy, Aiden Hutchinson, this was my pick to win this award at the beginning of the year, and I don't know. I'm not gonna say that he was gonna win the award, but I mean he had 6 sacks through the first 4 weeks of the season before he broke his leg and then missed the rest of the year. Um, and I think that this is just my personal opinion. If he stayed healthy, I think that Aiden Hutchinson was well on his way to win this award. But injuries are a part of the game, and um, not to discredit what Pat Surtain did this year, like I said multiple times, big congrats, well deserved on his part. Um, yeah, I got nothing else. Moving on to the offensive player of the year, and I'm not surprised. You shouldn't be either. I picked this guy. I mean, look, you see what DeAndre Swift did last year for the Philadelphia Eagles. He went out, balled out, got a big contract, and then we see what he did in Chicago this year. My thought process when you look at a guy like DeAndre Swift and Saquon and compare him to Saquon Barkley, these two guys are not on the same, like, not even close to the same level in terms of skill, and just pure athletic ability and talent. So I was not surprised if you give Saquon Barkley the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. We saw what he did in New York with the New York Giants offensive line, who is one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. It was a no-brainer that he was going to go out there and ball out. I don't know if I was going to say that he's going to go out there and potentially break the season rushing record, but I knew that Sky was going to be great and be explosive and be a game changer for this team. I think that there was a lot of guys that could have, Jamar Chase was a Triple Crown winner, youngest Triple Crown winner in NFL history at the wide receiver position. I think obviously anything like that, I mean, is well deserved of this award. But Saquon Barkley, if he played the last game, he was going to break Eric Dickerson's rushing record. I think they took that into account, even though he didn't break the record. They acknowledged that if he played that final week, he probably more than likely would have broke the record, and I think that they acknowledged that. And not to mention just the impact that Saquon Barkley had for the Philadelphia Eagles. We saw the Philadelphia Eagles last year. We see what they were this year with Saquon, what their offense was this year. I mean, You got guys like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts that's throwing the ball, but it doesn't matter. Your main component on the offensive side is still running the ball with a guy like Saquon Barkley because he's just that good and he makes that much a difference for a football team. So I think that I'm going to go ahead and jump the gun on this one. I think that is a big reason why I also would have advocated a little bit stronger for Saquon to ultimately be the MVP of this year as well, just because of what he did for his team. But I'll get that to that when I can. Um, but yeah, Jamar Chase, triple crown winner, youngest triple crown winner in NFL history. Great season. And I mean, as long as him and Joe Burrow stay together in Cincinnati, I think they're both going to be. I mean, the Bengals as a whole are just going to be competitive. They just got to find ways to win in September. If they can find ways to win in September, I think they're a shoe-in for the playoffs year in, year out, and they're not going to have to worry about, these win or go home situations in week 18. So, congrats to Saquon. I'm not surprised. That was my pick, and I'm here for it, man. Um, our comeback player of the year, I just mentioned his name, but Joe Burrow is our comeback player of the year coming off. I don't even know what it was. It was something in his wrist, I think, that was like, I remember watching the game where he got injured and he tried throwing a ball and the ball was just falling out of his hand. He couldn't even grip a ball. So I don't remember exactly what it was that the injury was that happened to him last year, and sidelined him for the year. But comeback player of the year, I mean, this is another guy that up in the MVP conversation because the numbers that he was top of the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns and QBR. Like coming off an injury, I don't see how there was anybody else that was even in the running for comeback player of the year. And I'm gonna say it. I don't know. I might get heat for it, but I don't really care. Cause I'm gonna just say it anyway. I'm tired of seeing look. Acknowledge what happened with Damar Hamlin, and it's a great story, but we got to stop putting him in comeback player of the year for mediocre, like mediocre performances on the field. I acknowledge what he happened was tragic, but this was 2 years ago now, and he's still in comeback player of the year talks. Like I'm sorry, but we gotta stop just, putting him in this race to be a comeback player of the year in year. Like this is the second year in a row where he just had a mediocre year, but because of the severity of what happened, he's in the running for this award. I'm just kind of ready to move on from it, to be honest. I don't, and I'm sure he is as well. I don't think that he wants his career to be defined by what happened a couple of years ago. I'm sure he would much rather his career be defined by his play on the field and not something tragic that happened 2 years ago. So NFL, like, let's move on. Moving on to, so I'm gonna move on. Yeah, defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse, and hey, shout out to Dean. He hit this one on the head. Jared Verse, he had an incredible year. Obviously, I mentioned the how the edge rushers are typically defensive player of the years are guys that are getting sacks, and defensive rookie of the year usually falls in line with that. And we see Jared Verse here. Obviously, the Rams being a playoff team helps. But Jared Verse had a great year as well, and Florida State guy. So I know Dean's excited for that. Um, but yeah, I got nothing else really crazy to say. Verse, he was efficient. It wasn't anything super flashy, but quite frankly, I don't think there was a whole lot of other guys that were just super flashy with crazy numbers or anything like that. But Jared Verse was just real productive, and we saw the impact he made. Another guy that I think had a legit shot to win this award was actually two guys, and they're both on the same team at the same position. Is Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, the both cornerbacks, rookie cornerbacks for the Eagles. I mean, I would have leaned more towards Cooper DeJean, just honestly, not even from like a number standpoint, just because I feel like there was more hype and buzz whenever he was making plays. I saw a lot more stuff about Cooper DeJean making plays, and I don't know, that might just be because all the people freaking out about how he's a white corner in the NFL. I mean, I would hate if that's the only reason why he's being hyped up, because he is an incredible athlete and he is super exciting to watch whenever he is making plays. But Quinion Mitchell also was a great shutdown. Not I'm not gonna say shutdown. Obviously, when I say shutdown, I'm talking about guys like Pat Surtain and just elite guys in the position. I'm not gonna jump the gun and say he's a shutdown right now or he was a shutdown this year, but I'm not saying he can't be that because I do think that he can be. But regardless, rookie year, he had a great rookie year. Um, and that Eagles defense, their passing defense was solid between him, Slay, and DeJean. I think that those are three really solid guys they're going to have at corner for the foreseeable future. So shout out to our defensive rookies. Coach of the year, Coach Kevin O'Connell with the Minnesota Vikings. And yeah, I think that this 100% was the right choice. I mean, you could look at it, guys like Andy Reid, 15-1. The Chiefs obviously were grinding out victories. It was nothing easy. You could argue for something like that, but I think this Coach of the Year award really needs to be determined by at least talking about the year prior, a team that the year prior maybe struggled and then we saw a significant turnaround, or maybe a team that doesn't have the talent that these other teams like the Chiefs have, and they are able to go out and produce. And I think that Coach O'Connell did exactly that because I mean he basically like revived Sam Darnold's NFL quarterback career. I mean the year that Sam Darnold had I think that Coach O'Connell does have a legit case as to being the main reason why. Obviously, having a guy like Jay Jettas there definitely helps. Aaron Jones in the backfield definitely helps. But just as a whole, as a team, I mean, we looked at what the Vikings did on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and that this is honestly a result of also that defensive coaching staff as well, because O'Connell is more so the offensive side of the ball, but I mean, Brian Flores, obviously, he's an assistant coach to Kevin O'Connell, and he had that defense playing out of their mind. He was another guy that I think I said that Ben Johnson was the hands down. I think he was the hands down to win assistant coach of the year. But Brian Flores, no slouch. I think that Brian Flores definitely had a case as well. It's just there's just a little bit too much of a gap between the two of them. But yeah, the Minnesota Vikings coaching staff as a whole coached their hearts out, and the Minnesota Vikings were a massive threat. And so I think that this is a well-deserved award. Big congrats to Kevin O'Connell. Um, and then moving on to our final award that we got here, we got the MVP. And there's a little bit of controversy with this one because there's four guys that were really in the running for this between Josh Allen, Lamar, um, Saquon, and then Joe Burrow. I think that really all four of these guys, they have a case to win the MVP just on the numbers alone and the impact that they made for their team. Joe Burrow, I'm going to start with him because I think he's kind of the bottom of that four. Even though he finished top of the league in touchdowns and QBR and passing yards, team success, I think it's the main and it sucks because I've been saying this all year. If if the Bengals had any sort of defense whatsoever, the Bengals are probably a 12 to 13 win team, and he's probably winning the MVP. I'm going to be honest, but unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do about it. It is what it is. But Saquon Barkley, another guy that I think really had a good shot to win the MVP, even out of the quarterback position, just because the impact and how valuable he was to his team. I mean, he completely revamped what the Eagles offense was and was the main force pushing this Eagles team to be I think they were 14-2 or something like that, 15-2. So Saquon Barkley was definitely the most valuable player on the Eagles. But then, I mean, I acknowledge also kind of a lot of that is to do with the talent that is around him. But I think that Saquon Barkley 100% definitely had deserved votes to win this award. But he also had two guys ahead of him between Lamar and Josh Allen who had historical seasons. I mean, I think Lamar Jackson can kind of jump in the same. The reason why I think Lamar Jackson didn't win. All right. I know that there's people that are upset that he got snubbed from the award. I'm not saying he didn't, but I also see why he didn't win the award. I mean, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens team as a whole, and I mean, yeah, Lamar Jackson as a quarterback had a historical season. I think he was second in the league in passing touchdowns, had a great QBR and pretty good numbers through the air and on the ground. However, he also had Derrick Henry in the backfield that was really at up until about week 16, he was right up in the conversation with Saquon Barkley, potentially breaking Eric Dickerson's record. So to say that he was the most valuable player in the NFL, I think is fair to say that he probably wasn't, just because we see that yeah, don't get me wrong, he is definitely the most valuable player in Baltimore. However, the season that he had last year, he can't win playoff games. I mean, and playoffs don't even go into it, but the season that he had last year compared to this year was very different. And something that changed, obviously, was the addition of Derrick Henry. So my argument is that Derrick Henry ultimately played a little bit of a factor into Lamar having the year that he did. So that's why I truly believe that Josh Allen was the right choice for MVP. Because if you look at this Bills team and you take Josh Allen off of this Bills team, they're a five. I think they're a 5-win team, maybe, like maybe, because that's just how much of an impact he makes for this Bills team. That might be a hot take, but I stand by it. I mean, if Josh Allen isn't the quarterback of this Bills team is going nowhere. And they've been an AFC championship team now for at least two of the last 3 years, or they're always contenders since at least since Josh Allen has been the starter in Buffalo, and there's no reason there's no reason that the Bills are contenders other than the fact that Josh Allen is their quarterback, and he is hands down the most valuable player to his team and the most valuable player to their team out of every team in the NFL. Out of every team in the NFL, I don't think there's a single guy this year that was more valuable than Josh Allen. And so that's why I truly believe that Josh Allen was the right pick to win this award. So that's that. Agree, disagree. I don't really care. All right. That's just my opinion and my take on it. But that's gonna wrap up everything, at least that we saw in the NFL honors as far as individual awards go. So without further ado, man, let's get into this Super Bowl matchup, all right? This is the Super Bowl that nobody wanted to see. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, unfortunately, this is kind of the battle of two evils per se. I mean, the only people rooting for the Chiefs are Chiefs fans, and the only people rooting for the Eagles are Philly fans, and the rest of the nation is just kind of like on standby. This might be the least watched Super Bowl in a while, just because I think there's so many people that are just so uninterested in the Super Bowl. But regardless, I mean, look, I don't care who plays in the Super Bowl. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna enjoy it because I just love the game of football and I love the competition. I like all the work that these guys have put in just to get to this point, and to see them go out on the field for 60 minutes and just put it all to bed, put their bodies on the line. Like that's what I watch football for. And that's what I watch all sports for, honestly, is just because seeing that they have this end goal, they work for it, and ultimately to get there and perform, it's exciting to me. And to make this game even more exciting, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and just jump the gun again. My pick to win the Super Bowl, I think the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of people that are not going to like that. But I refuse to believe that you can bet against Patrick Mahomes. I think that Patrick Mahomes, and look, there's been no NFL team in NFL Super Bowl era where that has ever three-peated a Super Bowl until this year. The Kansas City Chiefs, if any team and any one was going to be the first to three-peat, it was going to be Josh Allen, or not Josh. Wow, see, I was talking about Josh Allen. It was going to be Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. I mean, That's what it is. They're a dynasty, and I think that they solidify that tonight um in the Super Bowl. And the Philadelphia Eagles, I think their recipe for winning this one is honestly their offense is gonna have to just go out there and ball out. And I'm gonna be honest, I think that this Chiefs defense is going to stifle Philadelphia's offense a little bit. I think this Chiefs defense is gonna give Philadelphia's offense a lot of problems. And this is probably my hottest take for this game. I don't think Saquon Barkley is hitting 100 yards. And I say like 100 yards isn't easy to get, but because Saquon has gotten 100 yards so frequently, his line's at like 120. But I don't even think he's getting 100 because I think the Chiefs understand the game plan is to get Saquon going, and they're going to very strongly reinforce their defensive front in order to stop the run. And I think the way that look, I think the way that you beat this Philadelphia Eagles team is you make Jalen Hurts beat you. And I think that they also have the guys on the outside. I mean, look, Trent McDuffie, one of the best corners in the NFL. He's going to be going up with AJ Brown pretty much all game, I'm sure. And I think that that's going to be a great battle to see. I don't know if AJ Brown is going to be as impactful as Philadelphia needs him to be. So that's kind of my whole reasoning. And then obviously on the offensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce, and you got DeAndre Hopkins now. He's playing in his first Super Bowl. I think he's going to be involved early. I think that you got a young rookie and Xavier Worthy who's very explosive. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes some big plays. Hollywood Brown, he's healthy. I think that he's going to make some plays when they need it the most. And then their running back situation, they got two running backs. They got Pacheco, who's still a little bit banged up, I think, but Pacheco is still a great running back. And then Kareem Hunt has been dominating in the playoffs this year so far, and he's coming off the couch. So I don't even know. I mean, look, I think that there's just too much behind with this Chiefs team. They're playing really good football at the right time. This is the best. The last couple weeks for the Chiefs in the playoffs has been the best I've seen the Chiefs all year. And they're getting hot at the right time. And that's why I thoroughly believe that I don't think there's any shot that the Philadelphia Eagles can pull this one out. And so give me the Chiefs to three-peat. And I just hope it's a good game. But I hope to see history tonight. And I want to see Patrick Mahomes be great. But more importantly than anything, the thing I'm most excited for is seeing Kendrick Lamar at the halftime show. So that'll be exciting. I know he's gonna have the whole place going. New Orleans is gonna go crazy whenever he starts playing "Not Like Us." I mean, I was a he swept the Grammys with that. I mean, it's gonna be a hell of a halftime show. I'm just super excited for the Super Bowl. Um, but yeah, Chiefs three-peat. This is what you've been looking forward to all year. Don't fold as soon as you get to the finish line, all right? So that pretty much wraps it up. I got nothing else. Um, but I appreciate y'all if y'all are still here tuning in, listening. I appreciate everything. Obviously, this is the last game of the year, so to everybody that has been with us throughout the whole year, we appreciate you guys. We would look to receive your continued support as the offseason kicks off. And then coming soon, we're going to be kicking off our MLB season as the MLB season is getting underway. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, I appreciate everything that y'all have been supporting us throughout this whole football season. And we look for continued support for the future to come. So without further ado, that wraps up our NFL predictions of 2024-2025. And make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. And we'll see you all in the next one.